All right. I think that we are on. Welcome everybody to today's Q&A. Today I want to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in parenting, especially if you are raising a child with developmental disabilities. And that is your mindset as a parent. Now, I know that that word can sound kind of a little fluffy, like it's about being positive and manifesting good vibes. And that is not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about the way you think, your beliefs, your expectations, your habits, what you do, how you respond, because all of that shapes what you do every single day with your child. And that really, really matters. And it matters a lot because how you show up, how you respond, what you try or you don't try, it all comes from what you believe is possible for you and your child. So today, I want to help you get really honest about the stories that you're telling yourself and give you some perspective to think in a way that supports you and your child. So let's go into it. So many parents come to me exhausted emotionally, mentally, physically. And oftentimes I hear, I've tried everything and nothing works, or that doesn't work for my child. But when we dig a little deeper, it's not that they've tried everything or nothing, it's that they've focused on the wrong things. They've tried reward charts, sticker charts, traditional therapy, maybe even Pinterest routines. But the only thing that they have not done is look at their own patterns and behaviors. They're constantly focusing on the one thing that is going to stop my child from doing X, the one thing that is going to make my child do X, but never actually look at my own behaviors as a parent and how that plays a role in the big dynamic for my child. The things that they keep doing as a parent, like giving in when you know you shouldn't, or yelling even though you don't like it and it makes you feel like a bad parent, or trying something new because that would never work for your kid. It's not because they're lazy parents or bad parents, it's because as humans, what you believe shapes what you do. What you believe in drives your actions, and you can only act on what you believe is possible for you and your child. Now, why does this happen? Why do we only act on what we believe it's possible for us? It's actually a survival mechanism. It's your brain trying to protect you. If you've ever avoided trying a strategy because you knew that it wouldn't work for your child, that's your brain trying to protect you from wasting time, energy, or feeling like you're failing again. And if you, for example, have ever yelled, even though you have promised you that you wouldn't because you want to be a patient parent, that's not because you're awful. That's because yelling works in the moment and it gives you an instant sense of control. Your brain is wired to fix things quickly, to get things quick because it's trying to save time, energy, and resources to keep you alive. So if yelling works in the moment, it defaults to it. So understanding that gives you that perspective and it helps you understand that that's actually a trap because you get the short-term win, the short-term reward at the cost of the long-term result that you actually want for you and your child. So I want us to dive a little deeper and look at the patterns underneath those behaviors as a parent, not with shame, but with curiosity, so that again, we can understand the why, because it's just like your child's behaviors. When you understand the why, then you can start to change it. So it's the same for you. If you understand the why behind your own behaviors, then you're able to start doing things differently and get different results. Okay, so why does this happen? The first reason is, like I mentioned, your beliefs drive your actions always. So if you believe that your child cannot handle something, you won't give them a chance to try. And I'm going to tell you a story. I had a family who, when I first met them, the child could walk, but would spend most of his time in a wheelchair. The reason for this was because the family believed that he physically got tired very quickly due to his physical condition, which was partially true, but they believed that he got tired very quickly. When I first started with them, I could not comprehend why, if the child could walk, we would not strive to make that the norm. He was not actually physically impaired to walking. It was just more as a support because the child would get tired. Fast forward, we worked on intervention. Like it was very perplexing for me. So I worked on it, of course, with the family on board. And there was one time that he ended up walking so much, we actually forgot the wheelchair at a Starbucks. The family forgot the wheelchair. And they didn't notice until 3 days later when the manager at Starbucks reached out to them, letting them know that they found their wheelchair. And that was the moment that they realized that their child actually could walk more than they ever thought possible. Of course, after that, their belief changed and everything changed now. Fast forward to many years later, the family no longer used the wheelchair at all, which was crazy. But at the beginning, if I had told the parents, like, hey, you actually don't need the wheelchair, they would have literally called me crazy. And so, again, this is just to show you a story of what you believe in shapes your actions. So if you believe that routines never work, you won't stay consistent long enough to see results. If you believe that yelling is the only thing that works, your brain will default to it every time you're overwhelmed. So, here are a couple of strategies that I recommend parents using if you are really trying to be aware of what you believe in so that you are not putting limitations on your child. The first one is to ask yourself this question: what if my child is more capable than I assume? What would that look like? And is that even a possibility? And the second that you can implement with your child is to break down the task. So, for example, let's say that a parent wants the child to clean up toys, but the parent thinks, well, if I ask him to clean up, he's going to freak out. So instead, I'm going to clean up for him, not because he can, but because the parent belief says, like, I want to avoid the meltdown, so I'm just going to do it for him. So for that cleanup example, instead of believing, okay, my child is going to freak out if I ask them to clean up, so I'm going to clean up myself, break down the task. Instead of asking them to clean up, just ask them to put one block in the bucket. It's not the full cleanup, but it at least shows you and it shows your brain that your child is not going to freak out and that he's capable of doing it. Over time, this actually builds momentum and it builds the belief in you that your child can, in fact, do it without the meltdown. And that simple shift can actually unlock a whole new response for you. Okay, reason number 2 is that parents repeat the behavior that brings instant relief, even if it hurts in the long term. Examples: yelling works instantly, it gets your child to stop. Giving in works instantly, it gets your child to stop. Reminding your child 20 times works because they end up doing it. If you repeat yourself over and over and over again, even though it's exhausting for you, they actually do it. It ends up working. Now, however, what that does in the long term is it obviously doesn't get you to your long-term outcome, right? You don't want to keep yelling. It makes you exhausted as a parent. It makes you feel bad. So yelling increases that dysregulation, and giving in increases the behavior in the long term. Repeating yourself trains your child to ignore you. Maybe there are even points that you don't even like your child for doing all these things. So a strategy that you can do for this is to replace instant gratification, meaning like you want the quick fix, with a skill that allows you to change your default pattern. So if your default pattern is to yell, what you want to do is, instead of reacting, maybe you say, I will pause for 3 seconds before I yell. What you have to do for this is to arrange your environment for that. If you want to, instead of immediately yelling, you want to pause for 3 seconds, You have to have something in your environment that will help you make that change. Sometimes I recommend for parents to put a picture on the wall or just like a circle, like a purple dot, something that will remind you, hey, hold on, grab your brain's attention. And instead of yelling, just pause for 3 seconds. That will actually allow you to interrupt the pattern of your default response. Reason number 3 is that parents don't understand their own why, so they repeat their inherited patterns. A lot of us didn't grow up with examples of calm parenting, so we fall into the habits without really realizing that we are doing it. So, a strategy that I recommend for this is to use the 5 whys question on yourself. If you do something that you don't like yelling, ask yourself why. Why do I yell? Maybe because I feel ignored. Okay. Why does feeling ignored feel so big or triggering to me? Well, because when I was growing up, I felt like I needed to yell to be noticed or to express my needs. Okay, why does that affect you? So you see that 5 why reasoning and where it gets to. It gets to a deeper belief or a deeper meaning to the action. So it's not just yelling and ignoring. It might be that yelling and ignoring makes you feel like you are unimportant and unloved. Like that's how deep our beliefs are. And when you uncover that why, you actually start to be able to change that. Reason number 4 is that parents unintentionally lower expectations to avoid their own discomfort. This is not intentional. This is, again, part of your brain's survival mechanism where you unintentionally will do things to avoid the discomfort of what that will create for you. You will yell to stop the behavior of your child because that behavior, if it continues, creates a lot of pain for you. So, essentially avoiding the meltdown today feels easier than teaching a skill that might take weeks or months, but that it will be gone for the long term. However, this is something important for you to remember. Your child will rise to the level of belief that you hold for them. Again, your beliefs shape your actions and how you actually support your child and the things that you will try. If you expect more and support them through it, they will grow. If you tiptoe around everything to avoid meltdowns, to avoid stress, then they'll stay stuck. Really, the middle is where it's at. I'm not saying ask your child to run a marathon when they are 3 or something like that. Not unrealistic. Like as long as the expectations are realistic and you can support them through it, the middle is a good place to start. And with that, I'm going to open it up for some questions. I already see some coming in. And let me see. I got a question from, if my mindset is such a big factor, how do I even know what beliefs I'm carrying that might be holding my child back? That is a great question. I would start with asking yourself the question. If you notice a repeated pattern, so for example, things I hear, maybe you resonate with this from parents is, oh, that doesn't work for my child. That doesn't work for him. That doesn't work for her. That if you find yourself continuously repeating something about your child, then notice it and ask yourself the question, is this true? And is this really true? Because that will tell you what behavior or what beliefs you're carrying that are holding your child back. I would generally advise that if you have something, like for example, I'll give you a good one. Parents will tell me that doesn't work for my child, and I will ask them, will you allow me to try? Can I try it and see if reinforcement doesn't work for your child? And then I will show them in the moment. And then what that creates for the parent is a new belief. I'm like, well, it worked in this instance. So maybe it doesn't work all the time. So what you want to do is find evidence that if that is true or not true for your child based on whatever you're telling yourself about it. I got another question that said, I always tell myself that won't work for my kid. How do I stop automatically shutting things down before even trying them? Very, very common. Like I just mentioned, it's probably the number one thing that I hear from parents that won't work. That doesn't work for my child. Again, I would encourage you to try to find evidence against what you believe that won't work for your child. If you say reinforcement doesn't work for my child, being gentle doesn't work for my child, make it out so that you realize you find the evidence, you realize that it works for him, even if it's just one instance. Then you will start breaking those beliefs when you actually see in real time that that actually does work for your child. I repeat myself 10 times before yelling. How do I stop training my child to ignore me without losing my patience? Great question. I'll give you one strategy. The moment that you need your child's attention, instead of repeating yourself 10 times or defaulting to yelling, drop what you're doing and get in close proximity to them and make sure that you have their attention. It will look something like this. Instead of you yelling from the kitchen or repeating their name over and over and over again 10 times, you're going to drop what you're doing. You're going to walk to where they're at. You're going to get at their eye level and you're going to say, like, hey, so and so. And then tell them whatever you need to tell them. That alone, instead of you trying to get their attention from far apart, far away, or yelling, will make a significant difference for you. You mentioned putting a visual reminder on the wall to interrupt the yelling reflex. What kind of cue actually works when I'm already triggered? An actual visual reminder on the wall will actually work when you're already triggered. The important part is that you make that reminder, that you anchor it into knowing what that is supposed to trigger. I like, for when you're already in the triggered zone, I like visuals or pictures that will create the opposite response. So if you put a really cute puppy up or like a panda hanging upside down, that will actually um, activate the reflex of like, oh, that's so cute. And so it makes it easier for that triggering response to outbalance itself. So if you cannot anchor a neutral visual like a purple dot and you're still going to bypass it in your brain, then put the opposite response. So a cute picture that will make you be like, oh, so that you're calm. I lower my expectations because I'm scared of setting off a meltdown. How do I raise expectations without making things worse? Great question. It's not 0 to 100 and they're not mutually exclusive. You can raise the expectation without setting your child off. This is where the breaking the task down strategy would work. So you don't want to go from no expectation to the full expectation. What you want to do is make a minimum change that is almost unnoticeable. Example, clean up your toys. Okay, maybe that's too big for your child right now. If you want to set up the bar and right now say you are cleaning up for them and you want them to clean up, what is the next step above cleaning up for them that it's not the full thing, but that is just more than what you're currently doing? Maybe just clean up one block. They clean up one block and you clean up the rest. Slowly, you can increase the expectation over time so that you build momentum and your child builds momentum. That's how you break it down. When I think something will take weeks to fix, I feel defeated before I even start. How do I stay motivated for the long-term wins? That is a good question. And this is actually not a parenting question. It's almost like every human question. We all are wired for instant gratification over long-term rewards. So what I would encourage you to do is to ask yourself the question, what do you want more? What is your priority? Do you prefer to outstand the pain, the immediate pain for the long-term reward of not having to deal with this issue anymore? Or for you, it's more important to get that immediate relief right now. Most parents would say, well, I would like to withstand the short-term pain for the long-term reward, but that part in the middle is hard, right? what you have to do is create an environment for you that reminds you why you're doing what you're doing and reminds you of that long-term prize or like long-term outcome. You can also have systems in place that reward you so that you're not in constant like pain, like you're working towards something. So start with reflecting and asking yourself what's more important to me. That alone will drive your motivation. And then second to that, I would think of how you can arrange your environment to keep you in that zone and keep you motivated for that long-term outcome. Let's see. I got one more that came in here that says, how do I change my mindset if I'm already overwhelmed? Really good question. It actually starts with that being aware that you want to change something and that you're already feeling overwhelmed. So, awareness, first step, great starting point. And also remember that you don't have to overhaul everything overnight. You don't have to change your entire sets of beliefs and mindset and be perfect. It's about awareness. So, if you're already overwhelmed, just start small. At the end of the day, you can ask yourself, what is one thing today that went really well for me in my parenting that I'm proud of, no matter however small? And then write down, start stacking your wins so that you can do more of the things that are working for you. A lot of the times, what's happening is that parents are in survival mode. They're going through the motions without being able to stop to reflect, to see what worked, what didn't. So, if you just create that little space, like 1 minute reflection to ask yourself, what worked for me? What am I proud of? And then do more of that in the future, that will make a significant change in your nervous system if it's already overloaded. Um, I believe that is all we have for today. So thank you. I will see you guys next week.